You are walking through your living room and you accidentally bump into the coffee table. Without even thinking, you whisper, sorry. You're at the grocery store standing completely still, and someone else crashes their cart into you. What do? You apologize to them. You sit down to send a completely normal work email, and the very first words you type are, sorry to bother you. If your chest just tightened because you recognize yourself, please stay. Society has probably told you that this means you lack confidence, or your coworkers tell you to stop apologizing so much. But you are not broken. Your brain is simply operating in a much more sophisticated way. What you are doing is not a sign of weakness, but an incredibly fast, unconscious survival reflex to mitigate threats. Let's talk about the heavy, invisible tax you pay every single day. You know exactly what I mean. It is the exhausting mental loop of replaying perfectly normal conversations late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you came across as too much, too demanding, or too bothersome. Society and often the well-meaning people in your life love to diagnose this behavior for you. Your coworkers pull you aside and tell you to stand your ground and stop apologizing so much. Your friends tell you to just be more confident, to own your space, and to stop shrinking yourself. And while they truly think they are helping, every single time they point it out, it just adds another heavy layer of burning shame. Now, you are not only anxious, but you feel intensely guilty for being anxious. You feel weak, like an imposter in your own life. You start to believe their narrative. You start to internalize the idea that maybe you really do have a broken sense of self-worth, that you are somehow fundamentally fragile, or that you are constantly seeking permission just to exist in the same room as everyone else. It is an incredibly lonely place to be. You feel like you are perpetually walking on eggshells around the rest of the world, apologizing for breathing the air, apologizing for taking up physical space, apologizing simply for being human. You end up apologizing for apologizing. But what if I told you that this entire social narrative is completely wrong? What if those quick automatic apologies are not a symptom of a defective personality, but rather the evidence of a highly tuned, deeply observant radar system? You are not apologizing because you think you are less than anyone else. But here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. To understand what is actually happening, we need to completely ignore your personality and look directly at your central nervous system. When you immediately say sorry to a barista who got your order wrong, or apologize to a colleague for asking a basic question, your brain is not trying to be polite. Politeness is a conscious social construct. It takes time to process. What you are experiencing is lightning fast. It bypasses your logical brain entirely. Your nervous system is executing a highly advanced, unconscious threat mitigation strategy. Imagine your brain as a high-tech radar system. For most people, this radar scans for obvious physical dangers, like a speeding car or a hot stove. But your radar is far more sensitive. It is constantly scanning the room for invisible emotional shifts. Think about the immense computing power required to pull this off. While someone else is just blindly walking through their day, your brain is simultaneously reading the room, analyzing microexpressions, predicting potential conflicts, and calculating the exact phrase needed to disarm the situation. It is like your brain has 50 tabs open, actively managing the emotional equilibrium of everyone around you. It picks up on a slight change in someone's tone of voice, a brief look of annoyance, or even just a heavy sigh. Your brain registers these tiny social cues not just as minor inconveniences, but as literal threats to your safety. To understand why, we have to go back thousands of years. For our human ancestors, being rejected by the tribe meant being left out in the wilderness alone. Social disapproval was quite literally a death sentence. Your brain, with its beautiful and incredibly complex wiring, still operates on this ancient survival software. When you sense even the slightest friction in a room, your amygdala starts flashing red. It signals that the group harmony is disrupted and therefore you are in danger. So, how does your brain protect you? It deploys the fastest weapon it has, the apology. That quick sorry blurt out is not an admission of guilt. It is a biological shield. It is your nervous system throwing a bucket of water on a tiny spark before it can become a forest fire. You are preemptively neutralizing the room. You are absorbing the tension so that the environment returns to a baseline of safety. It is a brilliant, instantaneous calculation that your brain makes in milliseconds, prioritizing your survival over your personal ego. But that is not even the most remarkable part. If you think this is just about having a little social anxiety, wait until you hear how psychology actually classifies this behavior. You have probably heard of the basic survival instincts. We talk about them all the time. Fight or flight. If you encounter a predator in the wild, your nervous system pumps you full of adrenaline so you can either fight the beast or run for your life. And if neither of those options works, your body might choose a third option, which is to freeze, hoping the danger simply passes by. But what happens when the perceived predator is not a bear in the woods? What happens when the threat is an irritable coworker, an impatient person in line behind you, or a boss who just sent a slightly vague text message? You cannot physically fight them. You cannot run screaming out of the office. And freezing just makes the social interaction incredibly awkward. So your incredibly adaptable brain resorts to a fourth, much more complex and highly evolved survival mechanism. In trauma psychology and neuroscience, this is known as the Fawn response. Fawning is the nervous system's ultimate appeasement strategy. When you cannot escape a threat, your brain decides the safest route is to actively pacify the source of the danger. You instinctively abandon your own needs, your own boundaries, and sometimes even your own physical space, just to keep the other person happy and calm. By over-apologizing, you are unconsciously making yourself smaller. You are becoming as agreeable and unthreatening as possible. You are sending out a continuous biological signal that says, I am not a threat to you, so please do not be a threat to me. Think about the last time you had to send a perfectly reasonable work email. You just needed a document by Tuesday. It was a simple, factual request. But before you hit send, you stared at the screen. You read it out loud. You thought, this sounds too harsh. So what did you do? You added sorry to bother you, and maybe you threw in a couple of exclamation marks just to ensure you sounded friendly. You were not being insecure in that moment. Your nervous system was literally overriding your logical mind, protecting you from the perceived danger of your colleague's potential irritation. To your primitive brain, their slight annoyance is mathematically equal to you being exiled from the community. It is a rapid calculation of safety, but here is the secret that most people will never understand about this fawn response. It is not a passive reaction at all. It is actually a highly active, incredibly strategic form of environmental control. When you apologize for something that is clearly not your fault, you are not surrendering to the other person. You are executing a psychological hack to forcefully bring the emotional temperature of the room down to a manageable level. Think of your brain as a thermostat in a house where the wiring is extremely sensitive. If the temperature spikes even 1 degree, your alarm bells ring. So when you sense conflict brewing, maybe a friend goes uncharacteristically silent or a client sends a blunt text message, your brain does not just sit there and wait to see what happens. It takes immediate control. The words "I am sorry" are literally the fastest sequence of syllables you can utter to force the other person's brain into a state of de-escalation. You are forcing them to instinctively respond with, "Oh no, it is fine," or "Don't worry about it." Boom, you just hacked their nervous system. You successfully bypassed a potential argument and guided them directly into providing you with reassurance. You're playing social chess while everyone else is playing checkers. You're not being weak. You're actively manipulating the social dynamics to guarantee your own safety. In neuroscience, this ties deeply into how your brain processes prediction errors and ambiguity. Your highly sensitive brain absolutely hates unpredictability. A stranger bumping into you is an unpredictable variable. A quiet coworker is an unpredictable variable. Your nervous system cannot tolerate that ambiguity because, historically speaking, ambiguity means hidden danger. So by taking the blame, by apologizing first, you instantly resolve that ambiguity. You define the narrative before it can be defined for you. You make yourself the cause of the friction, which ironically gives you a sense of total control over it. If it is your fault, then you can fix it. If you are the one apologizing, you dictate the resolution. It is a brilliant, albeit deeply exhausting, workaround your brain has engineered to navigate a world that feels overwhelmingly loud and volatile. Let's look at a networking event. You join a circle of people and the conversation stalls for just 3 seconds. While others might not even notice the pause, your hypervigilant brain registers it as a social failure. You immediately step in. Sorry, am I interrupting? You do this to absorb the awkwardness. You willingly take the social hit to save the group from discomfort. It is an act of extreme emotional generosity masquerading as low self-esteem. So let us completely flip the narrative right now. It is time to look at your over-apologizing not as a bug in your system, but as a premium, highly advanced feature of your brain. For years, you have been carrying this incredibly heavy label. You have been called insecure, a pushover, or a people pleaser. You've been told over and over again by society that you need to toughen up, that you need to stop caring so much about what others think, and that you need to protect your own ego. But neuroscience tells us a completely different story. You are not weak, and you are certainly not lacking in self-worth. What you actually possess is a profound level of hyper-empathy, combined with a threat detection system that operates at the speed of light. While most people walk into a room and only see the physical objects and the obvious loud conversations, you walk into a room and immediately read the invisible emotional data. You feel the subtle, unspoken tension between two coworkers sitting across from each other. You notice when the person next to you shifts uncomfortably in their chair. You are actively processing thousands of microsignals that everyone else is completely blind to. And because your brain sees everything, it feels a profound responsibility to manage it. You are willingly throwing yourself on the social grenade. You are consistently prioritizing the harmony of the group over your own personal ego. Think about the sheer psychological strength it takes to actually do that. It requires a massive amount of cognitive energy and emotional intelligence to constantly read the room, calculate the precise emotional deficit, and then sacrifice your own comfort to ensure everyone else feels perfectly safe. Society looks at this and views it as a flaw, a glaring sign that you do not value yourself. But the objective scientific truth is that you value the collective peace so much that you are willing to personally pay the emotional price for it. This is the ultimate twist. The very behavior that makes you feel so small, so awkward, and so inadequate is actually undeniable proof of a profoundly complex, deeply sophisticated nervous system. You are the emotional anchor in a chaotic world. You are not a broken machine that needs fixing. You're simply operating on a frequency that is far too high and far too nuanced for most people to ever understand. So, where do we go from here? The next time you find yourself apologizing to a piece of furniture or starting an email with a preemptive surrender, I want you to pause and take a deep, slow breath. Please stop being so incredibly hard on yourself. You do not need to embark on some exhausting journey to fix your shattered confidence, because your confidence is not the thing that is broken. You do not need to attend assertiveness seminars or force yourself to become someone cold and unfeeling just to survive the workday. All you really need to do is gently remind your beautiful, overworked nervous system that the war is over. You are safe now. The coffee table you bumped into is not mad at you, and it is not going to banish you from the living room. That busy barista who handed you the wrong latte is not secretly plotting your social demise, and your coworker is not going to fire you from the human race just because you asked a completely normal question. Your brain has spent your entire life working overtime, standing guard at the watchtower, meticulously analyzing every tiny shift in the wind to make sure you do not get hurt. It has done a magnificent job of keeping you safe, but it is time to let it rest. You are allowed to take up space in this world. You are allowed to have needs, to make noise, to be mildly inconvenient, and to exist without constantly seeking permission. You do not have to pay rent in the form of apologies just to stand in a room. The next time the word sorry slips out of your mouth for no logical reason, do not feel ashamed. Just smile to yourself. Acknowledge that your highly sensitive radar is working perfectly, and then gently whisper to your own mind, "Thank you for protecting me, but we are okay." Your hyper-vigilant brain is not a burden. It is a profound gift. It makes you deeply compassionate, incredibly observant, and beautifully human. So, stop apologizing for the way you are wired. Embrace the sensitivity that makes you who you are. If this video just put words to a feeling you have carried for a long time, please hit subscribe. This channel is a safe space for us to figure out this complex mind of yours together. You do not have to apologize here.